More to Marketing. Welcome to More to Marketing, the podcast that explores marketing, product, and everything business. I'm your host, Susan Walsh, and today we're going to be talking about what does cyber safety and cybersecurity look like today and in today's world, and specifically how AI is impacting safety. With the increasing integration of AI into both personal and business environments, staying safe online, encompassing both the cyber safety and cybersecurity aspects, has become a critical topic. AI-driven content, bias, and also that fabulous phenomenon we all know as AI hallucinations are really creating challenges and also an increase in mistrust. Additionally to all this, as businesses move to more cloud-based ERPs and customer experience solutions, it's important to understand both the opportunities and the risks associated with these technologies. Now, I am very, very excited today to bring along a very special guest, Ross Bark. He is joining us to talk about this particular topic, and he lives and breathes it. Ross is a renowned digital and online specialist with over 15 years of experience in driving strategic digital projects and customer experience solutions. He currently serves as the Director of CX and Digital at Enterprise-Wide, where he leads innovation customer engagement initiatives for brands and organizations. Now, Ross is also the co-founder of Best Enemies Education. Now, this is a pioneering program focusing on cyber safety and online privacy education. And he is actually an award winner here. He produced, wrote, and directed the award-winning film Best Enemies, which actually tackles cyberbullying and online safety issues for Australian schools and is being utilised all of the time to help those students and those teachers, which is a fantastic initiative that he created. Ross has a deep understanding of digital transformation and its actual real impact on customer experience. So welcome, Ross.
Thank you so much. Great to be on the podcast and really looking forward to the chat. Susan, thank you so much for having me on.
No, I'm very excited. We've had a couple of chats before today, and wow, the amount of things that you share with me about the changing environment, in particular AI, I find it absolutely fascinating, and I know a lot of the listeners will too. But tell me, how did you get on this journey? How did you start going into digital transformation and end up where you are now?
Well, it's interesting. So I started off working for a number of businesses. I actually set up a few startups, a number of years ago. And the key thing for me was really working with companies across different industries in terms of how they could improve the services and productivity that they're doing with their customers. And that started in finance, actually, back at my Macquarie Bank days, in terms of how brokers themselves could improve the way in which they were communicating to their customers online. And that was really the starting point. And then moving into health and finance around what small to medium enterprises were doing. So I started working with pharmacies and pharmaceutical companies around better ways in which they could improve their ordering and productivity in terms of the systems that they use in store and in pharmacy, and developing solutions and sort of transforming into that. And from that actually led me into retail and wholesale. I was working for Pacific Brands at the time, which is Hainesbrands today. Bonds, Underwear Group, Sheridan,
Yep,
Burley.
I'm very familiar. They get a lot of my wallet.
Exactly. So when I started working for them, they didn't have stores and they weren't selling online to customer, direct to customer, advertising direct to customer, of course, but selling through the department stores, discount department stores, other retailers. And that transformation was part of what I did there, which was setting up their initial website e-commerce solution where they sold direct to customer. And then they started rolling out a store network, which they have today. And if you look at where they've come from and the transformation that they had, and just in terms of what they were doing to have the product available and the process of how they would deal with individual customer orders, where they were normally dealing with bulk orders, of course, through the retail channel. It certainly highlighted to me and gave me an appetite to see how I could, provide more consulting and expand that out in terms of other businesses, which is what I've been doing with enterprise wide, working across, particularly in retail and wholesale in Australia and New Zealand, and across what they're doing in terms of customer experience and the digital experience for the customer, but also what the business is doing to manage their business process, their ERP system, what happens with when the order is taken, having all of that process that goes through into that final sale, but also having products available to sale, the pricing, the promotions, everything that they're doing. And we work with customers from, Harvey Norman to Spotlight Retail Group to Woolworths, Foodstuffs in New Zealand. But the key structure around all of that is, in this particular case, is utilizing systems like SAP as an enablement to support their business process. And
Mm.
so that's something that I've certainly been doing a lot of work on, but a lot of passion then on the other side around which you mentioned, which is cyber safety and cyber security. And that came because I witnessed firsthand how online behavior, particularly with young people, can have such a devastating impact. And you talked about Best Enemies as the film that I wrote, produced, and directed. That came out of a personal story from family friends. Their daughter was cyberbullied, and the impact that it had on her life at the time, and the process that they tried to go through to deal with it. And equally now, as a father myself, I've seen misinformation masking as truth in schools. It's happening now in healthcare and media. There's distorting facts, and there's these shaping of misleading narratives that are happening, right? So what we're seeing now, as if you look from an information or cybersecurity perspective, is that we can see firsthand how misinformation can compromise decisions, it can compromise services, and it can lead to costly errors in businesses and organizations. And that is driving a lot of the work that I'm doing today as well. And we'll talk around AI, but I think when you look at both business process, you look at us as individuals, how we're actually interacting online now, what we're doing in terms of the way in which we work and the things that we're doing. AI and productivity tools around that, and what is actually information versus misinformation is becoming critical. And in the next, I mean, we're only at the starting point. We've had a lot of discussion around AI in the media. ChatGPT, I was exploded that when that came to the fore, if you like, and it was sort of like peak hype for AI. But in actuality, if you look at where AI is today in terms of actually being integrated into business, we're still at the starting point. We're at the starting point of the use of those technologies, and you would have seen the last, even now, just every week there are changes happening. There are new announcements that are coming from all of the larger software and AI businesses in terms of what's next. So it's rapidly changing. Things are rapidly changing, and I don't think individuals are keeping up with that. They're certainly not at the level of what that means, where we're going to get to, and how that's going to influence our lives going forward.
I think one of the key issues there is with the prevalence of misinformation. How does the individual actually get the latest information on the technologies, the changes that are correct and accurate? Because not many people would know what source would be the trusted source for those. They still trust news or other sources that they just see around the place and don't necessarily do the research that they may have done a long time ago.
No, and that's exactly right, because what's happening is you're just taking for granted the information that you're seeing coming through many of these AI models like ChatGPT, like Gemini, like Perplexity.
Mm.
Now, all of them, of course, have different data sets as well, right? So their learning mechanism is different. They have biases, right? And there is AI hallucination, and that even in themselves, when they run tests, there's AI hallucination in ChatGPT up to 40, 50%, right? What does that mean? It means that the AI models are generating outputs that they sound like they're plausible, but they're actually factually incorrect, or they're nonsensical.
And this is one of the things that people need to understand, that ChatGPT is only as good as the data that goes in and the query.
Correct.
So
Correct.
therefore the likelihood of AI hallucination, I like to think of it is, back when I was growing up, it was books. There was no computers really.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
would be get the encyclopedia down and actually read it in the book. But that encyclopedia is dated to a print date of that moment in time. So it might not be 100% accurate. It's only as good as what was put in the book at the time. And that's the same as these agents and assistant tools and everything out there, that they can quite easily start fabricating and filling in gaps if you don't have a really clear query and
Yes,
make it tell
correct.
you if it doesn't have it.
Oh, 100%. And I think, take an example. You've got a customer service chatbot that might provide an incorrect solution to a customer's problem because it's generating response based in patterns and data rather than verified facts, right? So that that is the big issue. I mean, and the big driver of AI adoption is it's operational efficiency, it's data-driven decision making, it's enabled better customer experience, and of course, it also leads to reduction in operational costs as well. But I think both in a personal and business context, what
Mm.
is actual truth versus what is actual, context or taking information from what you've actually put in is blurred. And I
Mm.
think the impact of misinformation that we're seeing today. I mean, we live in a post-truth world, right? There is an erosion of trust at the consumers uh, have lost trust in their political leaders. There is a if you look at the mishandling of data that has happened in terms of data breaches over the last few years, I think a lot of people are skeptical in terms of the information they see. So, what does that mean in terms of the way in which businesses can utilize this information for their customers? And what does it mean in terms of what governments need to do with regulatory scrutiny as well? It, it's really important when you look at that impact of misinformation and data privacy, that you look at both the opportunity, right? And there's a lot of opportunity in building trust if you can use the data in a secure way to win long-term loyalty. The challenge is you've got to balance that compliance with innovation, and you need to do that by using the right solutions and systems and business process to do that. I mean, you need to have things that allow you to make easy decisions, but you've also got to meet privacy requirements and still activate valuable first-party data as a business. So I think a lot of people are, using, and they're using ChatGPT, they're using other AI solutions for sort of day-to-day individual things, but when you take it within business, we have to be really, really concerned if we're not integrating that properly and securely into our business process. And, as an example, SAP have an AI solution which is inbuilt into their new cloud ERP solutions called Joule, right? And they're using now a Perplexity to build that, that or using that AI tool through Perplexity, right? But then they're using you as a business are using your data, right, to contextualize that. Now, that data doesn't get shared back into the system, so it actually becomes really powerful because it's contextual around your closed environment, but yet at the same time, it's bringing all the insights and the learnings that is coming from that LLM. That's where you can really integrate AI into your business and use it across the board for business productivity. And SAP as an example now becomes a conversational piece when you're looking at what you're doing within your business process, whether it's asking a question around what's happening with the products that you're selling, or the sales, or the factor of customer service. That can all be driven by that and actually provide analysis and insight to make really quick decisions. So that to me is probably where once you see that integration of AI into solution sets, as long as it's done securely, it becomes really powerful.
And I think that's, like you said, we're still at the beginning stages. We're not seeing a lot of major integrations that we're aware of anyway. There's no announcements I've seen anyway about everyone bringing everything in and doing this the best way because it's still so new. People are still testing the limits, seeing what they need, the information coming out of it before going hell for leather, I suppose, as a phrase. What I'm loving out there at the moment is seeing some of the early adopters using it and bringing in an AI to assist businesses utilizing their products already. So they're investing, they're innovating, they're looking for ways on how to help my client build a better service, a better product, a better range, and optimize the journey. One that I think is doing a really great job at the moment that I've seen is MailChimp. So MailChimp has the ability to integrate into websites, and then as part of their service portfolio, they can actually come up with suggestions on how to optimize it for you and what the returns could look like as well, based on all the data that you've had come through your site. Because if you've got enough people coming through, you get enough data there to actually make insights and predictions. So that's what it's brought in. And I think that's fabulous that a lot of companies can't afford the SAPs of the world, etc. But other companies that are smaller but still great quality are now starting to bring about AI to be able to help businesses make those informed decisions the right way and the safe way.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. The key thing is around that contextual understanding and being able to enable that in a safe and secure way, and using the those productivity tools, but understanding what they're doing with your data. Where is that data going? And for individuals, that's about, also practical habits, using secure passwords, enabling multi-factor authentication and staying alert. But for businesses, obviously, the stakes are a lot higher in terms of what they're using it for. And
I,
businesses are investing in that.
I think that's one area that some businesses are still lacking. Yes, and let me know your thoughts on this.
Mm,
Yes, we're pushing consumers to do multi-factor authentication to ensure that, yes, they want to purchase that item, or yes, they're making that change to their subscription, whatever it might be. But I feel that businesses are still behind in doing multi-factor authentication on their own staff when they're making major changes or doing things within the systems.
yeah.
So that for auditing purposes, there's gaps and there's opening here for breaches and other horrible things to happen because businesses aren't looking at themselves enough. They're still so focused on the end consumer.
And that's the challenge. They're trying to balance compliance with the need for personalized marketing and seamless digital experiences, right? So the what is the main game at the moment? The opportunity really is building trust as a brand asset. That's what I
Mm,
see it as. Take an example. You've got you know, if we take businesses which like Qantas or Samsung, for example, right? The key thing is one, they need to balance managing customer consent and unifying data across all the different regions, but yet they've got to create consistency around privacy, respecting customer experiences as well. And there's a balance there that I think not enough businesses, particularly the smaller retailers, are doing. Because
mm,
what they're doing is, um, in many cases, they're doing multi-factor authentication now. Not all, right? But and some of the global companies that are responding by giving customers greater transparency and control over their data as well, so that you can actually see exactly what you've given in terms of your ability to access or use the data. So you can actually go and see what data you've you've allowed them to utilize, right?
mm,
Um, but there are many which are not doing that. In fact, if you look at some recent studies around how do people actually verify the information that they're giving online, it's the far majority are not doing that, and they're not able to do that, particularly in Australia and New Zealand. GDPR in Europe is much stronger in terms of compliance than we have in Australia. There are changes that are being proposed here, which are yet to actually be regulations as such, but they're certainly being proposed. I think the key thing is that businesses are playing a lot of catch up in terms of what that means. And they're using data, but they're not necessarily understanding the full scope of what that means for the customer and the implications that can happen. But in many cases, I guess, if you look at retail, it's difficult because particularly we're in a environment and economy which is constantly changing. It's certainly there's a lot of challenges there. So anything where they can drive revenue through promotions and things like that is something which they push very hard. But securing passwords is one thing. It's actually in terms of what do you actually maintain as that being that unique customer. And many businesses might use an email address as that ID or identification, but in fact, an email address can be heavily misused, right? Because you could create multiple emails just as one person yourself if you wanted to. Um, you, it the stakes now, given all the data breaches, the amount of data that we're sharing on a continuous basis around, it's not just our name and email and address, it's the interactions that we're having with these businesses as well. So how do you remain compliant and build consumer trust? One, you need to have the right systems in place, right? So um, you can manage that, but to have the right systems is that you need to treat data privacy not as a compliance cost, but as a competitive advantage.
Mm,
And what I'm saying to businesses is, one, you need to implement robust security protocols, right? That's a given. And most businesses are doing security audits and they're doing monitoring for vulnerabilities and they're using systems to do that. But a lot of them aren't doing employee training. They're not educating employees on data privacy best practices. They're not. So your weakest link is that individual that is accessing through a password or a vendor that's utilizing a password that allows someone to actually access customer data and important customer data. So employee training is so important because it's often the weakest link, right? They'll get an email and they'll click on that. Although everyone's using their own devices at work, they're bringing their phone, and they don't necessarily have the same security on that device that they have on others, right? And it might be limited to email. So great, you've got your email locked down, but they could be accessing a third-party system.
mm,
They have a vulnerable password, right? That's been used for testing purposes, but happens to allow them to access a database of customer information, and that information gets breached. It's exactly what happened with Medibank. They didn't secure their third-party vendor access, and Optus as well, which is it certainly emphasised the need for regular security assessments and response plans as well to mitigate breach impacts. Many of these companies do not have response plans in place either. So I think for businesses, it's training and response plans, having the right protocols in place. What do I do? How do I do it? And the other thing is, which we saw with many of these breaches, and we saw it recently with there's a company that was the providing e-scripts for government. So they're no longer being used by the government, but a few years ago, they were one of the companies that was managing e-scripts. So you go and you do your electronic prescription, which is now becoming, actually, you know, um, you go to a doctor and they in many cases they're giving e-scripts now, right? So it's become quite heavily adopted. But in this case, they were collecting data from the last 5 years, and they just kept on retaining it and retaining it. And then someone got access to that data. They had access to all of this data over many, many years. The company wasn't using that data now, it was just sitting there. So
mm.
the main other thing I would say is companies only need to collect the necessary data and retain it for the shortest time required. That's what they should be doing. And many aren't doing that as well. So I if to bring that together, the key question that I keep asking when I talk to individuals and businesses is, how can you better manage your online privacy and data? What are the things that are practical that you can do from both an individual level and then from a company level Do you have the right employee training? Do you have the right education? Do you have the right protocols in place? Because these breaches can and will occur. And I think there's enough lessons out there that education can actually help combat a lot of that and enhance cybersecurity awareness, which I think is the front line of defense for many people.
And it's not just about the staff training as well, it's about having information available for the consumer too, so that they've got access to know what's my data being used for, how can I access my data, where is it going in particular, because it might not be within Australia or it could be to another location. But getting that information out there as well helps them be informed too.
That information is critical, right? The awareness is one thing. The understanding of where is that data? Where has it come from? Can I trace an understanding of what that means is massive. I mean, to me, the mega trend is misinformation, just
Mm.
generally. But then you take AI. I mean, given the explosion of generated content for AI, um, and the fact that a lot of it is automated. Um, uh, we're seeing, particularly now that ChatGPT and Perplexity can create AI generated text, images, and videos. We have difficulty now in distinguishing between accurate and manipulated content. Um, Everything we do in social media, which everyone's using in search engines, is amplifying content without reliable verification. It's been amplified without verification. And that's really important because it's really this viral misinformation of harm that can cut across everything that we do, both from an individual, so it can mislead, but brand reputation is so important. It doesn't take much for that to destroy a brand and cost so much money in terms of being able to do that. I mean, how many people, if you spoke to most people that are using ChatGPT, would understand what is the bias and inaccuracy in that model? um, what is the model trained on? What is the data that it's being trained on with the biases and outdated information that it might have? And there is a lot of outdated information. And then, as I said before, it's then taking information that you're putting in and then just making assumptions in many cases. So that's where you really start to see the hallucination from an AI engine because it's decisions that it's making based on flawed insights that you've been communicating as well, right? So,
That
but
vicious cycle.
correct. But the positive on that is that there's now a lot more regulatory pressure and compliance that is coming into business to manage that. There's so much scrutiny on content accuracy and data transparency now that businesses, particularly those in healthcare and media and education, are really investing in that, and they are starting to do that, and they're using systems like SAP, which is building that into their solutions, their AI agents. So if you're using SAP within your business, right, you've got some surety in terms of you've got a lot of surety in terms of your data as a business, right? Which say if you're using Microsoft, they have their agent security as well. But if you're using a whole mix of stuff,
Mm.
it's very,
Where is it?
very
Yeah.
hard to understand where that's come from and to have traceability because there really is no protocol to manage that. So I think we are really at a tipping point as we start to see AI both from an individual and company level as being the interface in which we do most of our online tasks. We won't be using browsers the way we do today. And it's rapidly happening. It will take a little bit of time, but now in the US, as an example, you can buy products on ChatGPT, and you can go and ask it to. I'm looking for a pair of shoes of this make and this color. It will create a catalog for you in the background. It will present the options back to you, and you can say, "Okay, I want to purchase that." It will then go in the background. It's creating a cart with that particular brand or retailer, and it's doing the purchase and it's doing that checkout process, and it will just come up and say, "Okay, that's done. I've bought that for you." right? That's done. So all this stuff's happening in the background, but you're not seeing it. It's being visualized by the AI tool,
Mm.
which in itself provides a lack of transparency. But that's where things are going. Um, I think the interface of going into a browser as such and looking for things and doing things that way is going to decline rapidly
Uh,
because it's much easier to use these other tools to do those things.
And I think this is where the evolution of Web3 is going to be very interesting to see where AI now starts to impact all of this too.
I think I think it's going to be one of the um it's it's all around. So businesses are going to and are looking at how do I deliver engagement, right? But how do I effectively manage the behavior and the risk reduction in terms of doing that? And what does that mean now in terms of the interface in which I deal with my customers?
Mm.
Because to your point around all of these things, the change in it, the change in the way in which we interface with brands and businesses and ourselves is going to change, and that's just one part of that.
And it makes complete sense because I know, having spoken to some people recently on AI, the now adoption of being able to do it with audio commands. So, like I'm talking to you right now, I have a chat with ChatGPT and just say,
Yeah,
hey, listen, can you do this query? Blah, 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 blah. Instead of having to type it, is now making things even faster again. And that's changing an interface because I don't know many people who would use, say, Google and do an audio command to it. They traditionally still type it. I haven't, but now
I,
with
I,
these
correct.
agents, you're now able to talk, interact. Yes, no, that's right, that's wrong. Change this, change that. And it does it on the fly almost for you.
That's exactly right. And they're using multiple AI agents to do that. Right.
Mm.
So, and this is the thing that is also important to note is that when you're dealing with an LLM or you're dealing with a system like SAP, they're agents. It's not just one agent that's managing that for you. There are there's agents that are doing different things, and they have specific
Protocol
capability
tasks, yeah.
and tasks that they do. So you can then use those systems to autonomously plan and execute multi-step workflows. You can collaborate by connecting departments and you can streamline processes, but you're using multiple agents obviously to do that. So that business process becomes um, really, really amazing actually, because look at a business process as an example that companies use where they're sourcing products and services, right? So they might have to go and source a contract. Right. So they go through that process of negotiating and selecting suppliers, right? There's AI agents now within SAP where it will help you negotiate that. It has a pricing negotiator, which has been built in that. So you can then rapidly use that to provide the best possible structure around that pricing with that particular service provider or supplier, which you couldn't do before. You know, you'd be doing that through spreadsheets and a whole lot of discussion. It will analyze that for you, relevant to your business process. It will look at the best way possible in terms of being able to structure that. And then once it's done, you can then manage all of that procurement contract within your system. And you can do it, as you said, conversationally. So you can talk to and have conversational discussions with that. You can say, okay, I want you to release the selected production orders, please. And it will then go through that process of doing that. It will supervise that for you. It will release them for you and then tell you what's been done and how it's been done and manage that. And as it starts to learn on that, it will give you a view in terms of what needs to be done. So it's not just about finding information quicker, which it's great at doing. It's creating those processes for you based on its learning of your business, not just of the insights that it's gathering outside of that. So and SAP is in a very strong position there because the majority of large enterprise businesses across industry use SAP for their business process, their ERP. So what that means is that they are able to gather insights from multiple industries, from multiple businesses in terms of improving their AI models. And then that gives more context in terms of the way in which you use it with your specific private data, which obviously doesn't get shared, but the insights that it can drive in terms of improving business process, right, becomes so important because it's based on thousands of businesses. And I think that's where they have a competitive advantage because it's grounded in that business process and it gives them the power to act. But to our discussion, the points we've been making, that power to act needs to be done in a way in which it's secure, it's clear and understandable, that you are not giving it power to act in ways in which you did not expect it to.
Exactly. And I think just adding to your point there in how great it is to use certain companies that have great agents. So the example you've just given about procurement, that to a lot of companies is a moment in time of research they've done. Where if you're using the software and applications that come from a company like SAP, that's not a moment in time. They're going to be continually going out there and researching, checking it, putting innovative ways in there, looking at it in different spaces. So they're always going to be evolving and improving on it so that the next time the negotiation happens, you don't have to start from scratch. It's already there for you, waiting for
It's
you to
there
hit
for
the button and say, let's renegotiate.
exactly. Exactly. And then that allows you then to build trust on both sides. And I think that's a really important part of that. But you can see the productivity improvements that comes from using that solution and those solutions to run your business. And the interesting thing now is that SAP, was once, it's a big system that is very complex. Large enterprises use it. Well, now they've got what they call public cloud. So public cloud allows medium-sized businesses to get access to the same solution and the same benefit and the same AI capability for a much lower entry point through a public cloud solution, which is effectively configured, ready for you based on your industry. We're seeing that across many software providers where it's this SaaS solution, but it's a SaaS solution which you can also adapt across your specific business requirements as you need to as well, which I think was quite difficult. Well, it actually was very difficult to do previously because you had an on-premise solution where if you had to make a change, you got to get developers in and make those changes, and then it's customized to you. So had every time you need to upgrade that solution, you've got to go through a whole process to do that. This is getting upgraded and changed all the time based on what improvements are coming out, and you can take advantage of those.
And again, another key point there, it's not scary. If you haven't invested enough time or effort into even thinking about how to improve your security, the safety for your data as well as your customer data, it's not a scary place to go. There are businesses that help, large ones, medium ones, and there's solutions there ready to use so that you can get that top-notch security now and not have to have that huge development weight and cost. Because if you're going bespoke, that takes months, sometimes even year or years. Whereas now there's so much SaaS, as you said, out there that people can do it quicker and not necessarily have to have that heavy development in there now, which is fantastic. And more companies should be taking the advantage of these opportunities and looking at who they can bring in that have trust already built that they can then trust to do it with them.
And I think that's the opportunity, isn't it, for businesses to really look at that and go, okay, do I need all of these processes that I've customized over many years?
Mm.
What do I actually need to run my business now? What does that mean in terms of the growth of my business? Like, can I grow my business on a system which isn't going to constantly be providing me with the ability to get insights, to drive improved productivity, and at the end of the day, an improved customer experience for for my customers? And I I think what's holding some of that back today is many see it as a significant investment to do that, but you can you can start with something which allows you to grow with it as well. So I think it's important that businesses have a look at what they're doing today and actually get an analysis in terms of what that means going forward. Um, so, you know, when I I think about what really matters at the moment is that um, it, and this is what when I'm talking about education is that the both from an individual and business level, right? I think it's really important that everyone is aware of what is actually out there and what they can use it for, and the pros and cons of utilizing it,
Mm.
because you can get latched onto one particular model or one particular driver, but not really understand the pros and cons of utilizing that as well, and that's really important. So I'm seeing it every day. Whether I'm using a social media or search engine or um, ChatGPT as an LLM, um, most of the time people are not necessarily questioning the reliability or verifying what they're seeing and how they're using it. So I have no doubt that we're going to see viral misinformation harming brand reputation and misleading stakeholders and individuals being at risk. We're going to see more of that. We're going to see more data breaches because data breaches now are being driven by AI engines in terms of being able to access data in the same way we're trying to protect it, right? AI is being used on the other side of the fence to try and get access to data. And we need to be careful of that as well in terms of what we're disseminating and what information that we're giving as an individual. And that's, I think, really important.
And it comes to a point where, like, another example, all the time celebrities are having deep fakes done. So
Mm,
it could be in
mm,
regards to selling a product or just someone out to get them and does a naughty
yeah.
picture. But they're coming to such a point now of, is it real or is it fake? This misinformation, do we trust these sources? And then an AI journalist has put it up there on the news site thinking it's a real source. Everyone's commenting on it. And this poor individual who's caught up in it, how do they prove it isn't them when now they've got so many people against them? It's becoming a very difficult world to disseminate truth from the fiction that's being created from some of these tools by those more unscrupulous characters.
And they're using that to try and, utilize that brand or reputation of that person to try and sell something else or get access to data, which can be then used. And that is going to continue to have a big impact because there's difficulty for many people in distinguishing between what's accurate and what is manipulated content.
It's a
So,
new form of phishing, isn't it?
100%. And it's been really effective, actually,
Mm.
right? For these, but to use that particular personal brand to be able to get people to buy into either providing personal information or buying a product or service that
Yeah.
they have seemingly endorsed but actually have not. So, and you would have seen recently, there's videos where there's someone on the street interviewing people on the street, AI generated journalists or AI people in a street, which looks very real
Mm.
if on first glance, and it's all fake.
Particularly if
It's
you're
all
absorbing it on your phone and not a
correct.
larger screen. That's what's saving some
100%.
people at the moment is the bigger screens, but down onto a mobile and to a tablet to an extent, the pixels, but some of the time you can't even tell it's fake.
And also, people aren't really looking at it in any depth or detail, right?
Mm.
They're scrolling, right? So our capacity in terms of time is so minuscule that we'll look at something for, in some cases, a millisecond or a few seconds, and then we'll move on and we'll go, okay, well, that's what that was, right? So um, the focus level is, and
Mm.
young people in particular, right? It's all now built around that scrolling mechanism, and that's being generated through algorithms in terms of pushing content to me, which gets me into this cycle. I'm only seeing certain types of content. I'm not able to actually absorb or see anything else because it's actually not showing that to me. So it's taking me down these rabbit
Mm.
holes, which is forming opinions. It's causing issues politically. It's causing issues in terms of the type of information that young people and adults are seeing. There's no context. People aren't seeing the context. They're not seeing what is the dissemination of that information, what it actually means, and then people are virally sending this information out. We're seeing that on a geopolitical perspective. I mean, that's happening every day.
Mm.
I mean, we see that in terms of things that are coming out of different places and locations in the world, that a, an article will come out, or a statement will come out, and that will be seen as truth, and then it will be rebroadcast by um, a reputable news agency, and then a few hours later, it's actually found to be complete misinformation. But by
Mm.
then,
It's
everyone
too late.
has consumed. It's been consumed. We're consuming all this stuff continuously. Um, our ability to actually focus on one thing at one time is completely
Mm.
compromised, and AI and companies and um, bad actors will absolutely and are taking advantage of that. So they'll get you buying and buying something that you don't want to buy, buying something which is not legit, giving or providing information which you would never have thought to provide had you really thought about it, if it wasn't for that moment in time. So, um, and what concerns me as well, even when we talk about context, is that the AI models are trained on data with biases and outdated information. So there is an inbuilt bias and inaccuracy in AI models. So
Mm.
if you take everything you take from that as being an absolute right information, your decisions are going to be based on flawed insights. Now, as an individual, the consequences of that could be minimal, but for a business, it could be massive. Reputational damage, huge costs, high risks in healthcare and media and education and government, right? That's where these things become amplified so massively that I think um, there needs to be an increasing level of understanding in terms of what is happening with the dissemination of information. You need to, and everyone needs to be able to look to verify information in different ways. You know, I, I don't think there's enough clarity at the moment in terms of the verification of facts. I think AI models are increasingly at the mercy of these rogue parties, which is government and individual influences, and that proliferation now across the board is just going to amplify. So this is why education, processes and policies, government regulation becomes really, really important. But it's also having the tools and the access to tools that can actually say, no, that has been checked by a verified source, a trusted source, to combat that as well. I can have accessibility to something that will give me and present quickly and clearly what information is where it's coming from. Has it
Mm.
been compromised? What is the context around that? But it needs to be in such a way that people can consume that in the same way they're consuming the information that they see. Otherwise, they won't look at it either. So I think that's part and parcel of integrating these technologies into everyday things that we do, which is not happening today enough. It's changing so rapidly week by week that the integration of those sort of things in terms of being able to manage misinformation and data privacy concerns um, is playing catch up. And we've got great AI adoption, right? But it's superficial adoption, right? It's superficial adoption, but yet we're basing our decision making on it across the board. And there's so many different AI tools out there now as well. That's the thing.
Just a few. I think I heard a report that at the end of this year, there's going to be the tens of thousands of them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
And AI agents are actually creating their own AI agents,
mm,
right? And what that means is that they are effectively uh, becoming autonomous. They are operating autonomously, and triggering tasks themselves. And we are getting to that point where they will essentially make decisions themselves without input, without oversight. And that's where this education piece, but also the business process and structure around that becomes really important,
mm,
because that is it, not only is that going to drive that will drive huge amounts of profitability, but and productivity. But if AI agents are making more decisions and taking more actions across businesses and individuals, the question needs to be asked: who gave them permission? What did they do with it? And can we trust what they're doing? And that requires visibility and control. It requires processes in place and solutions to be able to do that. Now, there are protocols that are in place mainly between systems, and uh, between um, solutions like Microsoft to Microsoft, or SAP to SAP, or Salesforce to Salesforce, as an example. Um, but no business or individual is using just one. On the most part, they're using different ones. So it it you can't just have a, a, a structure and a trust layer that goes just between one ecosystem. It
mm.
needs to go beyond that. And I guess that's the important point of where things will go, in terms of what we're seeing today. So I find it really fascinating because when I talk to people about how they use AI and what they're doing with it, it you know in many cases it's um, very sort of baseline. I get it to rewrite some stuff.
It's an assistant. Yeah.
I can quickly find some information. It's assisting me with what I'm doing. But then within on the other side of the fence, people are actually using it to output business documentation out to market. So I think, and using it to, in terms of education as gospel, in terms of what it's of facts and information that it's provided, and that is only going to continue. I
Mm.
think there's still a lot of pushback in terms of how it gets used within certain institutions and businesses, and certainly within universities and schools. But it's not going to take long before it really it really becomes mainstay in across those areas. I think one of the key things is that we should be educating young people around AI engagement now, even from primary school level, right? As they start to use these solutions, because many primary schools, they're already using iPads at school.
I
Um,
actually heard a story about this. Don't mean to cut you off, Ross, but you
mm,
you can carry on with it from the story. But a preschooler, so not even at school, in preschool, like not even kindergarten, um, the mother let them have the ability to talk to ChatGPT, and I
yes,
believe they had a paid version. Might be wrong, but the child asked so many questions about dinosaurs
yes,
that it ran into a limit. Because the kid just kept, because the parent didn't know about dinosaurs, like they didn't know all these different types of dinosaurs, like if they have feathers or scales or whatever it was. So the kid
yes.
just kept asking question upon question, as a curious little 4-year-old does.
Mm.
And it just stopped the chat because it asked too many questions. So
That
education about that, about what's factually coming out of I know it was ChatGPT they were using, but
mm, mm.
Was it factually correct? Did it get checked? Is it someone putting in wrong things that have now come out and this child now thinks XYZ about these particular dinosaurs? I don't know.
Yeah, it's exactly right, isn't it? And that's going to happen more and more because um, the fact is it is so easy for them to use it. Now, I actually think it's a great tool for them to be able to use, right? But it is just so easy for them to have those conversations.
Mm. And this particular person was using it as a way to not probably interesting parenting. So they didn't have to go answer the question all the time. They're like, here, just talk to this, talk to this assistant here. It'll answer it for you.
Exactly right. Exactly, 100%. So amazing, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I've loved our conversation today, Ross. This has been absolutely fantastic. Now, I have a question I ask everybody. What brand, any brand in the world, best represents you and why?
So I have many probably answers to that, but if it probably be one, it would be for me because I use it quite a lot is American Express, and I would say that because Amex has always sort of stood for trust, consistency, and premium service. So
I like it.
that's values I bring to every engagement. And just like Amex supports its members through every stage of the journey, then what I try and do is deliver value well beyond the transaction. So, around SAP and other things on. So, an AI change. So, um, I I also think American Express is known for anticipating customer needs. They try and deliver personalized experiences. So that has always resonated and continues to resonate strongly with how I work in terms of being proactive and client centric and also focusing on long term relationships over short term wins. So, um, what I like about American Express is that it continuously earns trust through performance and it earns trust through relationship, and that's how I operate as well. So um, it's also a company that's investing heavily in AI and AI security as well, and they're doing a lot in that area. And it's certainly something which I know most people use in terms of either whether it's their loyalty program or within personally within their themselves or with their business as well.
Fantastic. I love it. And I think it makes complete sense as well. Thank you for sharing. Now I'm
Oh,
going
that's
to just do
okay.
a I'm going to do a quick wrap up and you can let me know if I've missed anything.
So
So for me today was all about learning about cyber safety and security and also how AI is really getting integrated into this world. So first off, it's really interesting to understand about hallucinations and where they come from. And hallucinations are really we've put in dirty data, it's giving us a dirty answer at a high level. So, of course, it's not going to know everything unless it has the right information put in there. So, you always have to really check whatever output you get from an AI tool to ensure that it is accurate. And that's down to figures, images, words, whatever it is. You should always check it because a hallucination could just be a couple of words in there, but they have huge meaning out in the world. And the problem with hallucinations happening if you don't check, there could be some major or brand issues that happen where it's detrimental damage, or even a poor decision is made because of a hallucination that has happened. So, fact checking, just like you would in the real world, should happen in the digital world too, because you want to make the best decision on the information. But that doesn't mean that AI isn't helping for safety and security. It's got some huge operational efficiencies that can assist as long as it's put in and integrated in the right way. And that's where we're still at the first steps. We need to understand how it can help us with productivity, how it can be integrated, what tools are already out there that we might have that we can integrate it more within, that we don't have to necessarily go out and get a new system because everything's evolving and changing. And that's why I'm thinking to myself is a really interesting space right now because with the amount of data out there, we need to make sure data is being used in the right way, in a secure way. And if businesses do that right, that does equal loyalty. But the business can then use the data for insights. But I really want to point out that data collected by companies should be data needed for decisions, not kept for the sake of keeping it, because that's when People forget, people move, systems change. And that's where data breaches could happen in the future, particularly if you have legacy systems that you forget to integrate or don't bother to integrate. So it's always important that when you're setting up or even doing your auditing and checking and changing things slightly, what do we need? What don't we need? And purge. Do that safe security purge. But if you're going to do 3 steps to ensure that everything is safe, secure to the best that you can, integrating AI as well, number 1 would be make sure the right systems are in place. What are you needing? What is your architecture? What can you get rid of? What do you actually need for the purpose of your business now into the near future? 2, you need to treat data security and safety as a competitive advantage. Because if your brand doesn't have issues with data or can't have issues with data because you're being so safe and secure, you're going to build trust and loyalty out there fast and be able to keep it too. And that builds a business and that equals money back. So investing in it is actually investing in a competitive advantage. And how do you do this? Robust protocols. A key one that gets missed so often is employee training. Train your staff, every staff member, on what data safety and security is for the business and how it uses it, what it does, where the data goes, all of these pieces. But then also ensure the consumer or end user understands as well, because that should be a really simple, this is what it's used for, this is where it goes. And then that will help that conversation too. Being clear and making sure everyone understands the purpose and the context of the data and how it's being used ensures that everyone's on that same page. And number 3, things happen. Even with the best of systems, there's always going to be, unfortunately, hackers and all the negative things happening out there. Even a disgruntled employee taking a database or whatever it could be. There's all those potential risks out there. So mitigate those risks by having plans. And what I mean, a response plan. Ensure you have a robust response plan in place for if anything does happen so you're not scrambling. Because if you have that fast response plan, you can minimize any risks associated with lost revenue, consumer issues, brand trust, all of those things. Even it'll be a more positive news story to go with it if you already jumped ahead of it to fix it. But overall, data being used by AIs at the moment, in a lot of cases, it isn't traceable or accountable. It's still in a bit of that black box zone of unknownness, which is a bit scary, particularly if they're starting to make their own. So misinformation, unfortunately, is out there. So we've got to make sure that we're doing things that are trackable, that are auditable, and that are accountable. And the AI agents need to be part of that journey as well for the decision-making processes. So you know what went well, what didn't work well, what needs to change in the future too. But again, it all comes down to protocols, traceability, and just verifying the info in a way that you know it's going to be from a trusted source so that everyone else trusts it too. What else, Ross? Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think you've really good overview, Susan. I think you've covered all the key points. I think the key thing to say overall is what you were saying is that ultimately the integration of AI and advanced technologies no doubt offers significant benefits for businesses and individuals. However, these come with challenges, particularly concerning data privacy and cybersecurity. But by understanding the risks, implementing robust security measures, and investing in education and training, both organisations and individuals can navigate the digital landscape more safely and effectively.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ross. Now, if anyone needs any assistance with any of their security or safety, or even to learn more about how AI can improve your productivity, reach out to Ross Buck. I'll have his LinkedIn details in the show notes and also all the details for where you can reach him on the web. Thank you again, Ross.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Pleasure to chat. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you. Everyone else, don't forget to follow More to Marketing for more fabulous guests in the future. More to Marketing.